Welcome to Macon Memories. I'm Lynda Wright at Randolph-Macon College. Today is June the 5th, 2009, and I'm here with Anthony Keitt and George Spagna.
I'm Anthony Keitt. I'm the Director of Student Activities and Multicultural Affairs.
And I'm George Spagna. I teach physics and astronomy and occasionally a little theology, and I'm also the director of the Keeble Observatory at the college.
Anthony, can you tell us how and when you first came to Randolph-Macon College?
I came to Randolph-Macon in the fall of 1989. I came as a result of my wife, Jody Allen, who was working at Virginia Commonwealth University, telling me about an opportunity here at the college. And so I came up and interviewed for a position as coordinator of residence life. And from that position, I was hired, fortunately. The staff person who was there was Ira Andrews, the dean of students at that time, and also Catherine Hull, who is currently here, was on staff. And so I came in as Catherine's assistant. She was the person in charge of housing, and I came in as her assistant. And from what I was told, I was the first live-on adult in residence life in about 7 years. Up until that time, they had house mothers. They discontinued the house mother program, and then they just had basically students on campus without anyone in adult capacity, overseeing them. So they hired me, and I took on that role. Then, as I came on board in that role, they asked me if I would also be interested in doing some programming in the areas of multicultural affairs. So I agreed to do that, and from there sprung my role as the director of multicultural affairs in its in its configuration over the years.
I originally came to the college in 1985, first time to interview for a sabbatical replacement position. Bill Hesse, who was the chair of the physics department at that time, was getting ready to go on sabbatical. They were particularly interested in bringing in somebody who had some background in astronomy because one of their rising seniors wanted to do a senior project relating to astronomy. In fact, I was offered the position. I do remember that I suspect he did this with every applicant for the position, but Bill Hesse would put his arm around the candidate and say something to the effect of, "This is only going to turn into a tenure-track position if I kill myself while I'm on sabbatical." So guess what happened? Bill goes on sabbatical, and he was killed in an auto accident on the Autobahn in Germany. They offered me the position. I had to turn it down because while I was interviewing, I realized the college didn't have sufficient computer resources for me to complete my dissertation work. At that time, I was in my finishing up stages of running calculations and writing my thesis. The following year, I was very surprised because I didn't know that Bill had died. I was very surprised to see the position advertised as tenure track. So I applied, came down and interviewed again, and I got the job, and I've been here since the fall of 1986 as a member of the faculty.
Can you each take a minute and talk about your early role models and mentors when you came to the college?
I guess for me, definitely I would have to say that Ira Andrews was a definite role model and mentor. He was a person who was very easy to talk to, very well loved by the students and admired. And as I looked at how he operated, looked at how he related to not only staff but to students, I felt that was something that I wanted to incorporate in how I operated. Ira was, he was a person who was scholarly, but he was also a person who was very committed to his church life, and that was something that an area where I was trying to grow. And he was just, like I said, just a wonderful person, and he treated everyone as family, and that was one of the things that, I found very attractive. I originally came to Randolph-Macon with the idea that I would be here for about 3 years and then move on to someplace else. And I remember one day saying that to Ira that I was only going to be here for about 3 years, and he looked at me and he said, "No, you're here for life," and I said, "No." Well, almost 20 years later, I'm still here. So Ira was definitely a role model for me.
Let's see. I came in originally expecting to be the number 3 person in a 3-person physics department. When I got here, I learned that Emmett Madry, who was a member of the department, would be leaving. I had no idea he was going to leave in the middle of that year. Bill Franz was my department chair at that time. And I guess I'd have to say that Bill was one of my first role models at the college, helping me adapt my teaching style to match the learning style of Randolph-Macon students. I came from a much larger institution where we would be more accustomed to lecturing to a large group of students rather than the small class sizes that we have here at Randolph-Macon. So Bill was definitely a role model. I think my key role model as far as integrating with the larger faculty, however, was James Scanlon in the history department. James and I hit it off very well, and he was very free with offering advice without offering criticism, and helped me to become a part of the larger faculty. We used to have a group of faculty which at sometimes would range up to 20 or 25 people who would gather for lunch in the campus center, what is now Macon Coffee. And if you wanted to just bring a bag lunch, that was fine. The opportunity for people across disciplines to just sit down and chat and not talk shop. And that group, it was very freewheeling. People would come and go, but it would very often include the dean, Jerry Garris at that time. The president, Liddell Payne, would drop in. They used to have something that on the menu there called a slab burger, which is a hamburger with a slice of bologna and a fried egg and all kinds of other awful stuff piled out. It must have been terrible. And I can remember the entire group watching Dean Garris try to eat one of those. And it was, we talked about it for weeks after that. None of us would ever have the nerve to try eating such a messy thing. And Jerry, of course, had to try to eat it without getting egg on his tie because he had to go back and look dignified in the dean's office. But we came up with all kinds of wonderful ideas. James Scanlon came up with his own little theory of why exercise works, and he invented a subatomic particle called the phaton, and exercise causes photons to leave your body, and that's how that stuff all worked. We had designed an entirely new curriculum built around just offering classes on the weekends, which would have been very popular with some of our students. We designed we even toyed with the idea of picking up on a Saturday Night Live routine where the skit was that they had a college and the rule was that the students would show up on campus in the fall, and as soon as their parents left, we would split their tuition with them and they had to leave. And we would generate letters home and stuff like that to make it look like they were really students, and they had to come back for parents' weekend and they had to show up for graduation. But that and these are the sorts of things that we would just throw out. We invented a Western civilization requirement which required them to study states that had corners. Looking at a map, if you look at the Western United States, they're rectangular, and the Eastern United States, they're not. So it was just great fun, and I really miss that. But I've now, in a certain sense, devolved into swimming on my lunch breaks and not eating lunch with anybody. I don't like going to the dining hall. It's just not, for me, it's not as comfortable an atmosphere as sitting with a group of fellow faculty and not having to worry about students listening in on your conversations.
A comment listening to George talking about some of the faculty members. I want to comment on, my experience coming to Randolph-Macon from other institutions. One, this is the smallest institution I've ever worked at. Before that, the smallest was about 25,000 students. And so, coming here, people had asked me, could I handle working, on a campus, where, working in a residence hall system where we had about 800, 900 students living, in our buildings. And I said, the last place I worked at, I had a complex that I ran myself that had 3,000 students. So it really wasn't a big deal for me. But one of the things that I really appreciated coming to Randolph-Macon was having the interaction with faculty members that I didn't have before. At the other institutions, faculty members would be people that you would see, you might have an occasional conversation with them, but not, a fairly regular, even if it's nothing more than just saying hi, passing, waving, things like that. And so that's been, a great benefit, to be able to joke, laugh, interact in various ways, working on pride committees. That's been a very wonderful experience of being able to work here at Randolph-Macon College. My wife, who, as I stated at the time, was working at Virginia Commonwealth University, would be amazed, when I would, talk about conversations I've had with faculty members, or we'd come on campus and, and I'd introduce her to various faculty members, or even the president, and she's like, "You know the president?" I said, "Yeah, don't you know the president at your school?" But again, it was just, being able to be at this smaller, more, comfortable environment where you did get to see, individuals, has been a great benefit.
Yeah, I think the scale of the college is very conducive. Even the architectural scale, we don't have any high-rise buildings. The campus is eminently walkable, although some of our students will drive from up campus to classes, but that's a separate issue. But it's, you walk through the campus, it feels comfortable. The scale of the campus is appropriate to the size of the faculty and the size of the student body. And it's, I could, and living in the Ashland community as well, the scale of the town matches the scale of the college. I mean, Anthony and I live in the same neighborhood, and I once clocked it on my odometer. My driveway is 1.3 miles from where I park my car on campus, and I could in principle walk that, and in times past I used to. I got out of that habit when my daughters were young, and I would be at my office and get a phone call saying you need to pick up your daughter at school, and I'd have to go home to get the car, and I just got out of that.
Since you just mentioned that town of Ashland, I wonder if you two could talk about your experiences on the town council and how your being faculty and staff at Randolph-Macon has colored that experience, influenced the town, just those relationships.
Well, I know when I first ran for a position on town council, I did that with the idea that I would be able to have an impact in terms of bringing the town and the college closer together. I thought, okay, I'd get on town council and I'd be a part of making all these wonderful decisions that would benefit both, only to find that when it came to issues that involved the college, as a town council member, I had to, to abstain from any kind of vote, and so I was like, okay, well, that kind of defeated the purpose of why I did this, and so what I found myself doing was a lot of cheerleading behind the scenes, a lot of encouraging, trying to explain to people on both sides, about what was going on, how it was going to be beneficial, certain issues that in terms of what the town was doing, how it was going to, help the college, and why, why students needed to be more supportive of people in town. For instance, as director of student activities, I had to let students know that when you have an event that's going to be loud and disturbing, that it's going to cause people in the town to not necessarily want to support the things that are beneficial to the college. And so they're like, so you get students saying, well, we have a right to party, or we have a right to enjoy ourselves. And I say, yes, you do, but you also have a responsibility to inform the community as to what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. I said, also, occasionally you need to invite the community to participate in your events. So if you're going to have a loud, music event, to invite the neighbors to come and participate will cause them to, one, see it as a positive event, something that they may want to be a part of, but even if they don't, they'll say at least they had the courtesy of letting us know this was going on. So doing things like that I felt very beneficial. I think one of the things that kind of motivated me to even think about being on town council was one day I was summoned to talk to members of town council because there was a noise violation that someone in the community had complained to them about. And so I went and talked to them and said, okay, this could be done differently. It can be done better instead of, and having a situation where someone is complaining, and then you have to respond to it. Maybe there's a way to develop that communication so that you can avoid the situation. And so that was one of the things that that I tried to do as as a member of council and having been a college staff member.
I think Anthony and I got involved in town politics at about the same time that we.
Welcome to Macon Memories. This is Lynda Wright at Randolph-Macon College. Today is August the 13th, 2009, and I'm here again today with George Spagna and Anthony Keitt. We began an interview on June the 5th, and we had some disk corruption so that we lost most of that interview. We're going to start again today because George and Anthony have graciously agreed to come in on a hot August day and repeat their conversation and their memories of their experiences at Randolph-Macon. We do have some fans going in the room, so there's a bit of a hum, but we're going to proceed, and I'll let Anthony and George introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Anthony Keitt.
And this is George Spagna.
Where the last tape ended, George, you were just beginning to tell us about how you became involved with the Ashland Town Council.
My involvement with town government, or anything beyond just being a resident of the town, actually kicked into high gear, I believe it was 1998. Over a period of a couple of weeks, the town planning office received 3 incredibly large proposals for projects, one of which was a Walmart, one of which was for a hotel complex, and another of which was a large residential development. And a lot of citizens looked at all of those things hitting all at once and said, too much, too soon, too fast, not fitting the scale of the town. So I got involved with a grassroots organization called Citizens for Responsible Growth, which proceeded to try an education process and a lobbying process to communicate to the town leadership that we didn't think those were appropriate projects. Ultimately, we were successful in defeating the hotel proposal. We defeated the residential development proposal. We were unfortunately not able to defeat the Walmart. The Walmart rezoning went through in May of 2000, and it went through with a lame duck town council. People who were backing Walmart had been voted out of office already, but the council had not turned over yet, and so they went against the wishes of most of the citizens and voted in the Walmart. After that happened, I wound up elected as president of the citizens group, went from there for a couple of years, continuing the educational role of what we called CRG, and ultimately ran out of excuses not to run for town council. And so I was elected in 2004 for my first term and subsequently reelected in 2008 for a second term.
Anthony, would you like to tell us how you became involved in town politics as well?
I had become active in a number of community organizations here in the town of Ashland, the Hanover Arts and Activities Center, as well as the Hanover Black Heritage Society. And after interacting with quite a few members of the community, people would constantly ask me to consider running for town council. And my response was always negative. I didn't think I was ready for that. I didn't think that was, the type of activities I wanted to get involved with. But people who I really valued, again, just kept approaching me. People like John Newell, former mayor, Steve Merritt, former mayor. And I started, looking at, if these people who were very successful in town government thought that it was something that I could do, then maybe I should consider. But I still wasn't convinced that it was for me. And so as I kept interacting with people, individuals like Roseanne Schauf, Stu Reed, it just, it got to a point where it was hard for me to say no. So I said, okay, I will consider. I should have never said I will consider, because I will consider became, oh yes he will. And people started approaching my wife, congratulating her and thanking her for allowing me to run for town council. And she came to me and said, "I didn't know you were running." I said, "I didn't know I was running either," but I guess it's going to happen. So I decided to throw my hat into the loop and try the signing petitions and getting names and going around and to talk to various citizens about being active on in town government. And when I first started talking to individuals, I realized there was a lot I didn't know. People would ask me questions about, what did I think about proffers, and I didn't know what a proffer was. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to make it. This is not going to work. But I soon found that the more I shared with people what I didn't know, they seemed to like the fact that I was just being honest, and told them, I wasn't trying to pull the wool over anybody's, eyes. And so, as things continued, I was very successful. And I remember the eve of the election, the first election, someone came to me and said, "How would you feel, if you didn't win?" I said, "I just don't want to be the person at the bottom of the pool. That's all I want." And then, lo and behold, I won and served, 8 very, what I feel, very successful and productive years. And so it was a great thing. Okay.
I think I share with you having to have been talked into running for council. In fact, what I told people was that I didn't have time to run for town council, and they said, "That's okay, we'll do all that work for you. You just have to show up when we need your presence and talk to people." I did not go knocking door to door. In fact, I was advised by Lauren Bell, who's in our political science department. She says, politics is local. You can't win a local election unless you go door to door and introduce yourself to people. So lo and behold, I didn't go door to door, and I still got elected. It was also an interesting race. There were 4 candidates officially on the ballot, and then there was, shall we say, a wild card candidate, or some people would call him a wingnut candidate, who was running as the true patriot, and his campaign pictures showed him in what looked like a Patrick Henry High School band uniform with a 3-corner hat, and he ran a write-in campaign. And I think he probably spent more money on his write-in campaign than the rest of the candidates on the ballot spent legitimately. And he was at the polls, and he was interviewed in the middle of the afternoon, and he told the reporters how confident he was that he was going to win, and he was even going into town offices and telling everybody he was going to be the next mayor. And after the votes were counted, nobody could find him. He got 24 votes.
Right.
And if anybody thinks that individual votes don't count, my margin over the gentleman who came in 4th was 18 votes out of over 400 that I received over 400, and Billy Lawing got 18 fewer than those, and our friend the Patriot got 24 votes total. I'm still trying to figure out who besides his mother voted for him.
No.
Your experiences at the college have been different. As George, you've been a faculty member, as you introduced yourself, and Anthony, you've been so involved in student affairs. I wonder if you could talk about, you've both been here a long time, your impression of the student body and how it's changed, and how your relationship with the students on campus has been through those years.
Well, I guess for me, as you said, I've been here a long time, and I first arrived to help with housing, residence life. The director of housing, residence life, was Catherine Hall, and she brought me on board to assist her. And at that time, we did not have any adult staff or professional staff living on campus in the residence halls. And so I came on campus to be the first live-in residence hall professional. And that was an interesting experience, living in the dormitories with the students, being there at night while they're trying to socialize, encouraging them to pick up their trash at night and telling them that they shouldn't be drinking if they were, not of age. And for some people, they were not used to that, and they was like, well, who are you? Why are you here? Things like that. So, but as time, quickly went on, I began to help them to understand that I was there trying to help improve their lives, not to stop them from having a good time or to, to bust their chops, as they like to say. As the years progressed, I started finding that the students, that hands-on approach, even though we were a small school, because they were pretty much left to themselves at night. They weren't used to having someone there to advise them in terms of the activities and the organizations. We had students who were serving as coordinators within the residence halls, and so I was there for those students to help guide and direct them. And so as time went on, I started trying to find, different ways to interact with students. And so from there, I was involved in developing, our multicultural affairs. It first started off as minority affairs, program, and developed things like student organizations and multicultural affairs organizations. I helped former Dean Ira Andrews with international students, so I took over the international interest group, and for me, probably one of the culmination of a lot of my work with students was the development of the Eugenia Gospel Choir, which grew out of the Black Cultural Society, and then eventually Brothers for Change, which has been a very strong organization on this campus for the last few years. And what I was really excited about as I worked with these student organizations is having organizations where the students themselves said, we don't just want to sit back and have somebody do for us. The first few years I was here at Randolph Macon, I would try to get students to kind of take charge of their lives here on campus. And I remember one young man said to me, he says, I pay all this money. I didn't pay that money to have to come here and do this myself. I expected somebody to do this for me. And I said, that's not necessarily what you want to have happen. And like I said, I've been happy that over the last few years, the students have said, they've had to take charge, attitude. They still want the support, they still want the guidance, but they're not sitting back saying, do this for me, which is what I experienced the first few years. So, so my experience with the students has been great. It's, it's probably the thing that has kept me at the school as long as it has, and kept me doing the things that I did, on the weekends and the evenings, as I, said to my wife, I said, when I was coming here every Monday night, at 10 o'clock for meetings, I didn't do this because I necessarily had to. I did it because I just enjoyed being with the students that I was interacting with. So.
Well, I've been here 23 years now. And my interaction with the students is primarily in the classroom. And that's a somewhat different relationship than the so-called student life professional staff has with them. On the other hand, I've gotten to know them fairly well. Cordial relationships. While a member of the faculty has certain intrinsic authority, we are in fact the reason the students came here. I don't think too many of our students at least come here just because they want to play football or because they want to join the gospel choir. So that's a different relationship. I think it would be a fair statement to say that the students 23 years ago probably worked harder outside the classroom than our current students do. I'm talking about working hard on academics. What I perceive is that they're working harder on the co-curricular stuff out of the classroom, and I think that mirrors what you were saying about the students taking more responsibility for that. They're every bit as bright today as they were 23 years ago. They work differently. They've come out of a different high school experience. Certainly things like cell phones, the internet, the general availability of computers in general. When I first came here, the physics department had one computer. And Actually, I take that back. We had two computers. One of them was an Apple II, and the other one was an IBM PC. The idea of a computer with a hard drive, a desktop computer with a hard drive, didn't exist, and we thought, I still remember when the department scraped together the resources to put a 10 megabyte hard drive into the PC. And you can't get a computer with that small a memory anymore. So the students are internet savvy, and a lot of what I have to do to evaluate it, and sometimes they come in with references that I think you can't rely on that as a valid source for what you're trying to do. My wife has accused me over the years of adopting students. It seems like in every class of physics majors, there are one or two students with whom I've had a particularly close relationship, and they've come to value me as a friend in addition to being a faculty member, and that's been, I guess, one of the more gratifying pieces of being here at the college for so long. I can look back, and there's this string of folks, many of whom still stay in touch with me. So.
Yeah, I would confirm that in the students that I interact with, they definitely value the relationship that they have with the faculty. They appreciate the work and the commitment that the faculty what the faculty have done for them, and it's just I think what we try to encourage them to do is to integrate what they do outside of the classroom with what they're doing in the classroom, and so as we have them look at projects, or for instance, when I was in charge of the campus activities board, I would encourage the chair of our lecture committee to look at what speakers can we bring in that complement what's being taught in the classroom, and I would encourage her to contact some of the faculty members to say, is there a topic or a particular person that we could look at bringing in that would complement them? And I see some of that happening, a lot more of that happening through the FYC program and things like that. I was approached just this past year by Professor Alphine Jefferson. They were doing something for the FYE, and they were looking at a group out of D.C., and I was investigating to see if we can bring them in. Various people were doing one-person plays, in relationship to, to history or to various forms of social justice issues. Not just bringing somebody in because they're fun and entertaining, but bringing them in because they actually teach something. So.
You mentioned the FYE, and I had a question here to ask about the changes in curriculum and through the years since you've been here, and how that's affected your teaching style and the just life in the classroom.
Okay. We went through a formal reevaluation of the curriculum, 5 years ago, maybe more than that. It was a multi-year process of looking at what we're currently doing, trying to decide what it is that we really want to be doing, and how can we adjust the curriculum of the college to better address that. It was controversial. There were some folks who said, look, we've done this curriculum since the late 60s, and it has served us well. It is the traditional liberal arts model, and while lots of other schools have gone running after educational fads and changed, we've been true to our heritage. On the other hand, all the disciplines are moving to becoming more interdisciplinary. It's very difficult for an historian not to have to know things about other disciplines. It's impossible. In my own academic discipline of astrophysics, as I point out to my students, an astrophysicist has to know some biology, has to know chemistry, has to know nuclear physics, has to know solid state physics, has to know geology. And since I like to teach discipline in a cultural context as well, I also have to know about the historical foundations of physics and try to convey that to the students. These things didn't just jump out as finely formed equations on the blackboard. There's a cultural context to a lot of this, and we try to convey that in our coursework. And one of the things that has happened with the revised curriculum, while a lot of the general education requirements really were a matter of rearranging the labels on the Post-it notes, The two cornerstones, or if you will, bookends of the new curriculum are the interdisciplinary first-year colloquium, which is a very ambitious program where every student participates in a 2-semester interdisciplinary seminar built by faculty around special interests. And you see collaborations that most students would not have thought of in high school as something they would be studying in college. For example, the FYC, and it was a collaboration with Hal Breitenberg in religious studies, and we looked at the physics of time, we looked at the theology of time, and over 2 semesters the students got a thorough look at the whole idea of what is time and how is it culturally important, how is it scientifically important, how is it used in everyday life, what does it mean, something they never would have thought of doing in high school. The other bookend on the new curriculum is the expectation that every student will undergo what's called a capstone experience. Many departments already had them, but there were a few departments that said, well, a major in XYZ consists in this list of courses. And it was determined that that's not enough, that something has to pull all the pieces together. For the science departments, student research has always been an emphasis. In the physics department, we went from strongly recommending a research project for those students who think they were going to graduate school to requiring it of all our majors, whether they're going to graduate school or not. The SURF program is not part of the curriculum, the Shapiro Undergraduate Research Fellowships, but SURF is part and parcel, and students can use their SURF experience as their capstone in some departments, where the students are proposing and carrying out over a 9-week session in the summer their own research projects. So if we take the curriculum that was here 23 years ago when I first arrived, add in the first-year colloquium, add in the requirement of a capstone experience, that's what we've switched to. A lot of the other requirements simply got new labels. Instead of a history and philosophy and religion requirement, there's now a civilizations requirement, which includes, guess what, history, philosophy, and religion.
A change that I've noticed over the years academically is that I have many more requests from students to be interviewed for something that they're doing related to their academic, course, major, something like that. And I'll have people coming in asking me questions related to social justice issues, diversity issues, things like that. And I always get this call or email saying, I'm doing something for my class, can I come in and talk to you? I didn't get a lot of that, with the early in my careers. And so so I had always prepared, I got to make sure that I have time for whoever's coming in. Sometimes they come in at the last minute, but again, they're coming. I didn't see that before, but I have seen that, in recent years.
I was wondering if each of you could address what have been your biggest challenges in your work at Randolph-Macon and your greatest rewards.
Nothing like small questions.
No.
Could be some of your biggest challenges or greatest rewards. It have to be the penultimate.
You want to take this first?
I think in terms of challenges, and I hate to just, this seems so cliche, but money has always been a factor. There are things that I have wanted to provide as a student affairs professional that there just has not been the resources. Whether it's a speaker, whether it's a program. For instance, several years ago, I used to take students to a leadership conference, and when I first started taking students, the cost per each person was roughly about $70, per student who I took to the conference. Now that conference is roughly around $300 per person, and that doesn't include the accommodations. And so it got to the point where I had to stop taking, because it just wasn't in my budget. And and it was a great conference. Great speakers. It was an opportunity for students to interact with other students from all across the Eastern Seaboard. But it was something that at Randolph-Macon, we just had to say no. We couldn't take advantage of this. In terms of various speakers, while our budget has, and with the college, has not increased substantially, in some years not at all, that has not prevented speakers from putting their prices up. So someone that you might have been interested in bringing in at $2,000, which is still a lot, is now running you $5,000 to $7,000, and that's an inexpensive speaker. When you talk a couple of years ago, the college had a goal of bringing in nationally recognized speakers. Well, the nationally recognized speakers were starting like $15,000, and that wasn't in the budget that I had. So money has been an obstacle. But that being said, the ability to to just be creative in terms of what you do, in terms of finding people who will be willing to come in and speak. I had a former student who turned me on to a friend of his who was doing one person plays, I think I mentioned earlier, and he targeted much of his presentation for K through 12. And so I kind of took a look at what he was doing and had an opportunity to see one of his presentations. And I said, is there any way that you can adapt this for a college audience? He said, yeah, of course I can. So I brought him in. And and I've had him here at least 3 times, and he's done, things like the life and times of Jackie Robinson to the story of Emmett Till, and his audience has ranged from, I've had, elementary school kids in the audience. I've had college students, have had adults, and again, just looking at different ways, to reach out and make things happen. So.
I think the biggest challenge that I've seen at the college, and this is perhaps comes from my own idiosyncrasies, we try to encourage our students to become broadly educated. I mean, that's the whole point of liberal education, that you're not just a specialist in some narrowly defined field. And yet, if we look at the reward system on this campus, in particular the rewards that we give to our students at the annual honors convocation,
That's right.
and the reward system for the faculty, we encourage people to be very narrowly discipline dependent. Faculty are not recognized in general for being good citizens, for example, for being broadly interested in things. You got to write a book. You got to publish a paper. You got to get a research grant. There is one student award that's given out every spring where the citation specifically says this should go to a student who demonstrates a catholicity of interests, and yet we're not encouraged to model that for our students. And that has been a frustration for me because that's really the way I like to function. It is because of my commitment to students and myself being broader than just narrowly defined as a numerical astrophysicist that I got involved in town politics, that I stay deeply involved in my church, that I carry my interest academically into the field of science and theology, not something that I'm going to get a lot of research grants for, not something for which there's a wide, huge version of an academic discipline, but one which is growing and for which I'm hoping to get some support. We're hoping to get an academic minor in science and theology started within the next couple of years. In fact, I hope to get a proposal to the curriculum committee this fall. So that sort of dichotomy between telling students they should be broadly educated and broadly interested and then encouraging them to be narrowly defined. Some of my colleagues in other departments say that their department goal is to send their students to graduate school in that discipline. And in the physics department, we say that we want to prepare our students to do whatever it is they choose to do upon graduation. And we have sent physics majors upon graduation to seminary. We have sent physics majors into lay ministry. We have sent them into construction. We have sent them into government laboratories. We also send a fair number to graduate school. But we're preparing them to do whatever they want to do after life. And if you look at the college mission statement, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I guess that would be a frustration. Rewards, it's the students. You know, I keep doing what I'm doing for the students, and as long as I keep getting that psychic income, the money side that Anthony talked about, you know, we sometimes will take spending to be in the classroom because you know, we get all these statistics from the American Institute of Physics, and it says this is what a PhD makes on the average so many years after the degree, and the college doesn't pay anywhere close to those kinds of numbers.
That's always been one of my favorite little jokes whenever anyone would complain about something I was doing, and they would say that, well, I pay your salary, you better do this. I said, you don't know how much I make. I said, that person over there pays my salary. You don't have anything to do with it. I said, because my salary is covered by his tuition, and he likes me, so I don't have to worry about you. And they say, you don't make more than that? I'm sorry. I don't.
If you were writing the history of Randolph-Macon, what do you think would be the important events that you would want to include? Not just events, themes.
I have to think on that for a moment. George, you can jump in if you have
Let me
something.
jump in. I don't know if this qualifies as a history, but it was, for a short while, I think, representative of what the college does as a community. And it's part of my personal story as well with the college. Former colleague, who's now no longer with us, Russell Shea, in the late 1990s, developed serious kidney disease and had his kidneys removed. And he was on dialysis. And when it first happened, I offered to be a transplant donor. And Russ said, I can't ask you to do that. And I said, Russ, I'm offering to do that. You're not asking. But he kept turning me down, and I kept reminding him every 6 months or so the offer was still on the table. In February of 2000, he came to my office and asked if the offer was still valid. And I said, of course it is. And that following May, I was able to go into the hospital with Russell and donate a kidney. And the reason I say that that reminded me of what the college is about. Sorry, this is at the faculty meeting when I announced to my colleagues that I was going to be a kidney donor, I got a standing ovation. On the run-up to the actual event, the college faculty and staff started organizing, sending food to my house and to Russ's house. There were a group of faculty who were looking to expand the college's international footprint. And at the time of the surgery, they were in Jerusalem, touring the Middle East. And I'm told they put prayers in the Wailing Wall on our behalf. And, you know, Russ got a good 5.5 years out of that kidney before it failed too. And we just lost him last year. So it was, I think, seeing the college come together to support us as individuals, I think that's what the college is about. It used to have much more of a family feel. For that brief time, the family feel was back. This wasn't a place to work. This was a group of folks who genuinely like each other and will do things for each other. We had a number of years ago, the students do this too. We had an international student from Nepal.
Got it. From Nepal? Okay.
Sushma?
Yes, Sushma.
Yeah. Sushma came here having never been out of the Kathmandu Valley. She was a wonderful student. And when her fellow students learned that not only had she never been out, she hadn't been home since she came here. She hadn't seen any of her family. So the students took up a collection. And unbeknownst to Sushma, they bought a plane ticket so her mother could come here for her graduation. So the students are every bit as wonderful.
Yes, they are. Yeah, our students in this community, as George was talking about the family atmosphere, what it said to me is how this community has incorporated their family into the larger Randolph-Macon College, family, because, my experience through, activities I've been involved with, plays, whatever, has introduced me to the family. Like, for instance, I know George's daughters, Russ Shay's, kids, I know them very well. I've watched them grow up. Holly Rison's, sons. There's so many people who have been a part of this college, who have allowed their children, yours also, to be a part of the life of the college, and through that, in that way, I've had the opportunity to interact with them and get to know them, and develop really positive relationships with them. And so when I talk to colleagues at other schools, and I tell them about experiences I have, they don't have those experiences. They can't really share the same things. When I tell them about, my involvement in the RMC theater department, and they're like, they let you do that? Say, yeah, it's, if I have the time and if I want to, they'll find a way. The students will sometimes come to me and say, we have a part for you. We need your help. It's like, that's something, that I think is just truly wonderful about this experience. When we say, the opportunity to be a part of a family, I have felt that, Randolph-Macon is the smallest institution that I've ever worked at, and I wasn't sure I would be able to handle being at a place that was so small, because I'm come from a large city, come from large institutions I've worked at before, but I have grown to appreciate the small feel, the flavor of being in a small community, and I guess for me that's when I think about the history of this college, it's being able to integrate all aspects of the college and the family of the college members into the experience. So.
Thank you. Those are both beautiful illustrations of your commitment to the community and to the college. Any final thoughts or memories you'd like to share that's about your experiences here?
I think because I've always had as part of my focus the issue of race and race relations and things like that. One of the things that always has stood out to me was the fact that early in the life of this college, when they had very few African American students on this campus, the student body elected as its president a student by the name of Dennis Howard, who was an African American male. And to me, I was like, that's amazing. That a school that had not had the experience of having African American students on its campus for that long, to then turn around and elect this young man as their student body president, again, I just thought that was phenomenal, and I tell people about that every chance I get, as I tell current students about the history of the college and who came before them, I point out that that this happened, that they need to not feel that Randolph-Macon is is a lost cause when they feel that we're not quite as diverse as we need to be, or that we're not making the type of progress that they feel we should make. But we also should keep in mind the fact that there have been people who have been here before them, who have gone through. I don't know what they, what Dennis had to experience to, in that position. But the fact that he was able to develop that type of relationship, I think, was again just phenomenal. So.
Here, not for professional advancement, but for the students. And as long as it still feels like I'm accomplishing that, I'll keep doing it. And I think people on Anthony's side of the campus feel the same way. We're certainly not in it for the money.
No. No. Well, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to do this and to allow us to come back for a second time. And I hope that this turns out to be as positive for the college as it has been for me. Thank you.
I want to thank you both for coming back again and sharing these memories, these very personal stories, which really are the history of the college. Thank you very much.
Thank you.